What up, everybody? You're watching New York Giants Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. In today's show, we're going to break down the latest Giants draft rumors as the 2023 NFL Draft is less than a month away. The rumors are that the Giants are heavily interested in wide receivers. They attended Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and Jordan Addison's pro day, which tells me they're looking at a wide receiver in round one. And deservedly so, right? I mean, when you look at this wide receiver depth chart, I know they made some moves like bringing back Sterling Shepard and re-signing Darius Slayton and signing Paris Campbell. But when you look at this depth chart, as much as I like Hodgins, who I think will have a great career for the Giants, none of these guys are elite wide receivers. None of them are wide receiver ones. And just because you sign Darius Slayton to a 2-year deal and Paris Campbell to a 1-year deal and you bring back Sterling Shepard does not mean you should not draft, honestly, an offensive changing player at the wide receiver spot in round one. In today's show, I'm going to break down my favorite receivers. I'm going to rank them from 1 to 4, and I'll give you some stats and info as to why I feel that way. But first, I want to hear from you guys. So let me know, who is your number one or wide receiver one in the 2023 NFL Draft? If it's Zay Flowers, type ZF in the comments section. If you're rolling with the big guy, Quentin Johnston out of TCU, type QJ. If you're rolling with Jaxon Smith-Njigba out of the Ohio State, type JSN. Or if Jordan Addison is your guy, type JA in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So if you can hit with that YouTube ad break, scroll on down and let me know who your wide receiver one is in the NFL Draft. Also want to let you guys know that we don't just do draft coverage here on Giants Now by Chat Sports. We go live once a week. We go live for every single game day. We put out videos every day on Big Blue. Subscribe now for the latest updates all off season long as we inch closer and closer to 27,000 subs. We're doing it for Brandon Jacobs. If you love the Giants, hit that sub button. All right, in this part of the show, those 4 receivers are obviously all on the Giants' radar. You don't send Joe Shane and Brian Dable to these guys' pro days if you're not at least somewhat interested in these guys. Obviously, the Giants value the wide receiver position as a spot they need to go address in the NFL Draft. So I'm going to rank those 4 guys in order from 1 to 4, and I'll give you my reasons and stats for why I put them that way. The number 1 receiver I think in this draft is Jaxon Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State. I know a lot of people are probably like, but Marshall, he barely played in the 2022 season. And I agree with that. And I don't really have to agree. It's just the facts. He played in just 3 games played last year. The stats don't really matter. He's 6'1", 196 at the NFL Combine. And at his pro day, he ran a 4.48 40. And people are like, well, are you concerned with the injuries? No, I'm not concerned, because what he did in last season, not the most recent season, the year before that, when he was a sophomore at Ohio State, why would you play through injury in your junior campaign when, even though you only played in 3 games, you're still wide receiver one? Was I supposed to be concerned about Jamar Chase not playing in his last year at LSU? No. If you're a good football player and you have a lot of money waiting on you to come down the line, why maybe mess up the bag and play through an injury? Also, the dude's an absolute freaking beast. When you saw what he did at Ohio State in 2021, how could you not say this guy is the best wide receiver in the draft? 95 grabs in 13 games, 16 plus 100 yards, 17 yards per reception, and 9 touchdowns. This dude can get it done at the NFL level, no doubt about it. Played high school football in Texas. I covered him when he played here, and he was an absolute dog there. The thing is, he is a slot wide receiver. That is where he operated mostly when it came to playing at Ohio State. But just because he didn't play outside doesn't mean he can't play outside. You're 6'1", 200 pounds, and you ran a 4.4. He can play outside, ladies and gentlemen. He just played in the slot because he played with guys like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And you might say, well, maybe that's why his stats were so good. What about in the Rose Bowl in 2021 when he went up against Utah and Olave and Wilson didn't play, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba went for 15 receptions for 346 yards and 3 touchdowns? No, that's not a typo. He did that in 1 game. 15 receptions, 346 yards. He is special, and if he were to wear Giants blue, I would be a very, very happy camper. Number 2 wide receiver in the draft for me is Jordan Addison out of USC. played for the Pitt Panthers back in 2021 at the NFL Combine. He came in at 5'11", 173 pounds, ran that 4.49 at the Combine. He didn't really test bad, but he didn't really test well either at the Combine. He's light in the tail, 5'11", 173 pounds. He needs to put on more weight, but he will do that naturally. He will grow up as a human and become a grown man and add some grown man strength. But what he did for the Pittsburgh Panthers in 2021 was one of the best seasons you'll ever see from a receiver in college football. 100 grabs, 15-plus 100 yards, 15.9 yards per reception, 17 touchdowns. For Pitt, he mainly played out in the slot. But for USC, he was a guy that played on the outside. They really used him in short situations. They tried to give him the ball more, but he can absolutely push the ball down the field. I mean, the last 2 seasons, the guy combined for 25 touchdowns. The reason I love Jordan Addison is because he can play anywhere on the football field. He can line up in the slot. He can line up outside. He can run in motion behind the line of scrimmage and kind of create some confusion for opposing defenses. And in my opinion, he's one of the best route runners, if not the best route runner in the draft. I like Addison a lot. He's a big play threat, and I think he might be the Giants' favorite receiver, because I don't know if Jaxon Smith-Njigba will be there when the Giants are on the clock at pick number 25. My third wide receiver in this draft is Zay Flowers out of Boston College. And you might say, well, Marshall, he's just a slot guy. He's not. That's the thing. Sure, he played in the slot a lot at Boston College, but he can also play on the outside. He is just so dynamic and explosive. Smaller for sure, 5'9", but 182 pounds. He's 2 inches shorter than Jordan Addison, but he's got more muscle on him. Ran a 4.4 40 at the NFL Combine, and all he did at Boston College was score touchdowns. When you look at his 4-year career, that happened there. He had 3 touchdowns in his freshman year, 9 touchdowns in his sophomore campaign. His junior season, 5 touchdowns. And then this last year for Boston College, 12 touchdowns. 78 grabs, over 1,000 yards, 13.8 yards per catch, 12 touchdowns. He can win in the short. He can win in the intermediate level, and he can push the ball downfield. He's also good in contested catch situations for a small guy. He is just so dynamic. When the ball is in his hands, he's an absolute game changer. And you might say, well, Marshall, we already drafted Wan'Dale Robinson in round 2. Robinson and Flowers are not the same type of receivers. Wan'Dale Robinson is a slot receiver that's got some, I don't want to say gimmick to his game, but he can run those gimmicky plays where he's behind the line of scrimmage and you pitch him the ball. He could take a handoff. He played running back at the start of his career. Zay Flowers, he's a true wide receiver, and if he reaches his potential, he's going to be an absolute stud. Some people say they think they see some Antonio Brown in him, the football player, not the whack job. And if you can live up to AB and what he did in Pittsburgh, that's going to be a hell of a pick. Although I have Quentin Johnston number 4 on my list, that does not mean I am not a fan of Quentin Johnston. Just when I compare these wide receivers and what the Giants need and how they would fit, I don't think he fits the best, but he does give you something that you don't have on this roster, and that's a 6'3" wide receiver that runs a 4.4 40 and had a 40-inch vertical at the NFL Combine. He can stretch the field. He can even, execute in the short as well. Go back to that play against Michigan in the college football playoffs. He ran that 15-yard over route, hands catch, and got freaking vertical, and no one can catch him on the field. The stats back it up, too. That's why he averaged 17.8 yards per catch last year for the Horned Frogs, 60 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 17.8 yards per catch, and 6 touchdowns. But my concern is when you're 6'3", 208 pounds, and he doesn't really play like it. He had a contested catch rate of just 34%, and he's somewhat of a body catcher, and I would say his route tree is a little bit limited. But I would not be surprised if we look back in 3 years from now, and Johnston is the best wide receiver from this draft class, because 6'3" guys that run a 4.4 40 and can jump through the roof with the 40-inch vertical, they just don't grow on trees. Am I worried about his lack of route running ability? Sure. I don't know if he can't run routes. He just wasn't really asked to do that at TCU. The contested catches do concern me, but Max Duggan isn't that great of a quarterback, and a lot of those passes where we would have to come back for the football and fight through contact. I wish he'd play a little bit bigger than what he plays, because he plays like a 6-foot receiver, but he's 6'3". I like all these guys, and if any of them are the pick at number 25, I would be happy, because I do think the Giants need another alpha and dominant talent on the outside. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, one of the best short area quickness guys in the draft. He operates out of the slot, but I think he's the type of guy that could be a security blanket for a quarterback on those third downs. Jordan Addison can do it all. Zay Flowers is the most dynamic with the football in his hands, and Quentin Johnston is your vertical threat that can do a little bit of it all, and he's an absolute freak when you look about size and speed. So I want to ask you guys, maybe you don't even think the Giants should draft a wide receiver. I already asked you who your top guy was. If you want to change it in the comment section, go ahead. But before we bounce, let me know. They signed a couple receivers, so maybe you don't think so. But I want to know, should the Giants draft a wide receiver in round one? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in to today's show. I think the Giants are going to draft the best player available on the board at 25. And if that's a wide receiver, we're all going to be happy. I don't think there's any doubt that they would do that. I mean, look, they've been at all of their pro days. They've all met with them. They've went out to dinner with them. I could see the Giants picking a wide receiver. We'll continue to keep you up to date on the channel. If you made it this far in the video, hit that thumbs up icon for me.